Hello, my name is Dylan Miller, and this is the BHS CTE Partners Catalog. This is the program I created, just by me, for the FBLA Computer and Programming competition. Here's a quick roadmap of my presentation. You have my design approach, the planning that I used, the code, just some snippets that I made, and the end product. First, the design. This competition required us to create a program for the CTE wing of our school to store any partners of the program. Here are some features that were needed, such as you needed to be able to store partner information, create a report, edit, delete, and add entries, have a good user interface, a help menu, instructions. You needed to be able to search and filter through the partners, and also validate user input so they couldn't just add random stuff. I took these necessities and I categorized them into two different categories. One's related to files and one's related to the user interface. I then used this little structure to create my plan. My plan was to use Python, which is a programming language that is good for data, and it also comes with a library called tk-enter, which is a user interface that's easy to use. I'm also very familiar with it, so it's easier for me. Using my previous plan, I had two classes that I used, one called File Writer and Reader, and one called the Menu Handler. The File Writer and Reader would be responsible for anything related to writing and reading files, such as the adding, deleting, editing, even presenting the report. It was all responsible for that. But the Menu Handler was responsible for the user interface, essentially. It had certain variables that would run checks, like if the variable was 0, such as self.state, it would be in the home menu. If it was 1, it'd be in the add and delete menu, etc. Here are some code snippets. These are both from the File Writer and Reader. Here is the adding function. As you can see, first at top, I grab the user information. I then create a full string of it with the parentheses to separate between the data types. I then have a temp list, which I then use to go through a for loop of the self.organizeInfo. The temp2 list is to measure individual items. If the item is found to be in another entry, it will not be added, or if any of the lengths of the entries are 0, which means the user did not fill them out, it will not be added either. However, it doesn't actually append anything to temp2, it just passes, because I then run a for loop through temp2 that counts the amount of ends. If there are less than 5 or more than 5 or anything that's not 5, it then will not add this new entry. However, if Y, which stands for yes, there is a repeat, is not in the temp list, or the temp list has a length of 0, then it will then write the new entry to the partners.txt file. If not, it'll let you know that the entry was not added successfully. Here's the editing function, which first has a variable that is set to false. This variable is then a new variable called number of entry to be edited, is then set equal to a user input. This input, however, has an except if someone puts in a string value or any number that is over the length of the number of entries, it will return you saying it's not a valid number. If it is valid, however, it'll then set is valid to true. Then it'll grab the new information. It'll then read all the lines in the partners.txt file, set that file to nothing, and will then go through appending the new information and old information. If the old information is found to match the entry that the user wants to edit, the new information is written over that. However, if any of the entries are left blank, it uses the previous information from before. Here are the libraries I used. I used tk-enter, which is my user interface library. It comes with Python. I also use OS and subprocess, which were only used to open File Explorer to the root file of the program. Here are some button examples, which are tk-enter methods. And here is the example where I use subprocess. Here's the README and the quick rundown of all the source code I created for it. Let me quickly set this to playback speed. There is a lot of code. It is 813 lines, as you can see. It is very lengthy. Near the end here's all the definitions for my tk-enter labels, buttons, any widgets. And then, as you see at the end, it hits the bottom. Here is the end product. This is the user interface in action. As you can see, I've got the instructions. This is the home menu. I got a Q&A. I've got a help menu, which has separate buttons, and I have an export report to text. There's also an open root folder button. It just opens the root folder of the program. Here's the add and delete menu. Here's the editing menu. It has instructions as well. Every menu does. Here's the report menu, which is a little slow, but it shows all of the reports over 25, which was the least amount you could have. It also has a search function. To view any text length, you can scroll over, you can click and drag. And then there's a help menu, which is ever present. It is sends you back to the home menu in the help state. And there's back to the instruction menu. Here is all of the features that I have. Here's a quick showcase of what the program is capable of. Here I'm going to add a fake new entry. While I am doing that, you can see I type in a new address. My program also takes dynamic backups. Every time you change a menu, it will take a backup of the partners.txt file. As you can see here, I've added a new entry, entry 27. Now let's say I want to edit that entry. I give it a new name, which is just new name. I click edit entry. The entry is now changed, just the name. All the previous information is saved. Let's say I delete it. I find the entry number, I hit delete. I look, it is gone. Here is the program running with no errors. I'll skip. By the way, when you open the help menu, it opens a little image that has a diagram of how you should use the program. Now you can see over here, when I hit the close button, it finishes with exit code 0, which means there were no errors when running the program. Here are all the assets I used. I made them all myself in Illustrator or Photoshop. They were not inspired by anything. I made them myself. And here is the end screen. Thank you for your time. Please have a good day.